If you've been building prospecting lists, you probably came across the same wall everyone keeps hitting. You write a keyword filter and you get thousands of companies back. The list completely looks reasonable, but none of them really convert. Because a keyword list tells you who might be an exact buyer of your product, not the exact potential customer that actually can convert. That's why I built a skill that runs entirely on Claude Code, powered by CompanyEnrich MCP. Last week, we made a webinar live session with Cold IQ, but today I want to show you the full funnel, comments, the skill itself running on a real case so you can copy it for your case. This is the build total addressable market skill running inside Claude Code and it's calling the CompanyEnrich API through MCP. First thing I do is ask it to list every comment before we run anything so you can see the shape of what's coming. 7 stages, each one reads the previous state's output, writes its own table and prints the next comment. Segment and seeds, reverse engineer the ICP, lookalike expansion, tire scoring, workforce ranking, decision makers, and finally finding work emails. To have a quick note here on cost, because this matters, sizing the market is basically free. It gets expensive at the end with the workforce data, the people search, and especially the email resolution, which is 1 call per person. So the whole design is narrow hard before you get to stage 7. You'll see me do exactly that later. Let's start from stage 0, connection check. The MCP is live and there is the credit balance. It shows you how many credits you have in CompanyEnrich. And watch that number through the video because at the end, I'm going to tell you exactly what this whole run cost. And here is the book we are working from. 207 real close won customers across 3 segments. I'm picking healthcare SaaS 80 accounts for this session. Now, stage 1. It reads those 70 accounts and curates 10 seed companies. And they are eVisit, Maiden, Welland, Access, Metrics Care, Therapy Notes, Dr. Chrono, Tebra, Cyper Health, and Healthy. Deliberately spread from $15,000 up to $800,000 and from legacy vendors to modern ones. So the profile that comes out of stage 2 isn't just our biggest deals, but the part I actually want you to look at is what get dropped. It cuts off the 6 80K deals, the Manforce, which is small medium business marketing automation for dental and vet clinics. It's mistag in this book. It isn't healthcare software at all, and seeding it will be dragged the whole lookalike towards local businesses marketing tools, HMS, which is payer side cost containment at enterprise scale, so a completely different buyer. Then the consumer apps, the hardware companies, and care delivery services businesses. This is the step people skip. You can throw all 80 in. The quality is worse because the engine considers all your seeds together and mixed bug blurs the results. Tight and beats and noisy 30 every single time. One more thing that happens here, almost as a side effect, seeding 10 out of 80 leaves 60 accounts the engine has never seen. Hold on to that, it becomes the proof later. Now we are running reverse engineer command. Stage 2 pulls the real profile of all 10 seeds. 10 calls, 10 credits, and it reads the shared pattern of the data instead of me writing a nice CP from memory. Major B2B SaaS vendors, 51 to 500 employees, 10 to 100 million in revenue, US first with a real UK tail, selling clinical workflow software into fragmented provider markets. And then this. Funding stage is not part of this ICP. Look at split. 4 VC backed and 1 PE owned, 1 grant only, and 3 with no funding records at all. And 2 of those 3 companies that never raised a round are among the 4 biggest deals in the entire segment. So if I had built this list, and in a normal way, if I had gone into in and set the filter to Series A, healthtech SaaS, I would have deleted a third of my own best customers. This is the kind of thing you only ever see by reading your deals backwards instead of forwards, which we call reverse engineering. There's a quieter finding underneath it too. The technical signature for these companies isn't a modern front end. Most of them are running WordPress, is the revenue stack, Salesforce in 6 of 10, marketing automation in 7 of 10. They have GTM ops functions, and GTM ops is who buys data. To have a quick note here again, 1 row in that table is marked unproven. And I like that it's marked. The buying signal row is an interference at this point, not something we measured. Stages 4 and 5 tested for real, and if it fails there, the row is wrong and it gets rewritten. Now we are moving to stage 3, lookalike expansion. This is where the market really starts to appear. We see 10 close-won customers, and the engine comes back with 3,020 lookalike companies. The first result is already a great sanity check. Matt Shafir is one of the 60 customers we intentionally held back, and it come back as the first lookalike without ever being shown to the model. So right away, we know it's finding the right pattern. Now let's compare to the traditional way of doing this. If I search for EHR as a keyword, I only get 212 companies, about 7% of the market. And the top result is contact, which we already removed earlier because it's not actually a good fit. So keyword search not only misses most of the market, it can still lead you towards a wrong companies. From here, I'll filter the companies with 0.80 plus similarity, which leaves us with 447 high confidence accounts. We'll also pull workforce data now so we don't spend credits enriching the same companies again later. Now, for the part I think is the most convincing. Remember, we only seeded 10 customers. The other 60 were completely hidden from the engine. Even so, it rediscovered 56 of them, that's 93%. 26 show up in the top 20, and the top 3 results are all real close-won customers. The four it missed are interesting too. 3 are consumer products that we had already decided didn't belong in our ICP, and the 4th is a Swedish company that was excluded by our country filter. So those misses are about filtering, not similarity. One quick technical note before we move on. The 0.80 threshold uses the engine's internal similarity score, not the score you see printed next to each company. In this run, almost 300 companies display below 0.80, even though they are all passes the filter internally. So don't sort by the visible score after the fact. Just trust the filter you applied, otherwise you'll end up throwing away a lot of good accounts, including some of those holdout matches. So far, we have answered who looks like our customers. Now, we want to answer a different question. Who is actually buying right now? That's where we add a second signal, hiring growth. If you look at the funnel now, it tells a pretty clear story. We started with 212 companies from keyword search, expanded that to 3,020 lookalikes, narrowed it to 447 companies that actually fit our ICP, and from those, only 79 are actively growing today. Those become Tier A. The remaining 368 are still great fit companies, but they are not showing that hiring signal, so they fall into Tier B. Everything else stays in Tier C, and we don't even bother materializing those. The interesting part is why this matters. Out of the 401 companies where we have workforce history, 190 are actually shrinking. That's almost half. There are still the right industry, the right size, the right profile, but if you look at firmographics, you would spend half your outreach talking to companies that are freezing hiring instead of growing. One example is Matt Shafir. It's actually the highest similarity company in the entire market, and it's a real close-won customer, but it ranks below companies with much lower similarity scores. That's intentional. It's a fantastic fit, but it's not growing right now, so it belongs in Tier B. Now we are running the command 5, which takes us to workforce signal, that we can also say the in-market shortlist. Back in stage 3, we already pulled the workforce data, so now we are just reusing it instead of enriching the same company again. Now I sort the list purely by hiring growth, no tires, no similarity, just growth. And something pretty cool happens. The first 78 companies all turn out to be Tier A, no exceptions. The cutoff lands at exactly 15% growth, which independently recreates the API's own threshold. 2 completely different approaches end up drawing the exact same line. Now we finally have our cool list. At the top, you got companies like Smarter Technologies, Mosaic, Assort Health, and Basque Health. What's interesting isn't just who's there, it's who's missing. Remember those companies with the highest similarity scores? Matchafir, VC, Practice Better, they are all in Tier B because they're basically flat. Meanwhile, the companies growing the fastest are neither AI-native businesses like Abridge, Smarter DX, Tenor, Steady, and Brillium. They aren't quite as similar on paper, but they are hiring aggressively. And honestly, that's probably where I would spend my time. Similarity tells you who resembles your customers. Growth tells you who's actually building. One small caveat though. These are 46 companies that don't appear in this ranking because they simply don't have workforce history yet. That doesn't mean they are shrinking, it means we don't know. So they stay in tier B rather than getting filtered out. Let's run the sixth comment, finding the decision makers. Now that we know which companies matter, it's time to find the people. Instead of searching all 447 companies, I only search tier A. That's 79 domains, which keeps everything inside a single request. If you search too broadly, the result limit gets filled by whichever companies happen to rank first, and some of your best accounts end up with no contacts at all. And that's actually exactly what happened on my first attempt. All 4 persona searches came back with exactly 100 people. At first glance, it looked fine, but the API also told me there were actually 823 matching people, so I would only receive 400 and the coverage was just 49 of the 79 companies. Nothing failed, no warning. The only way to catch it is by comparing what you got with what was actually available. Once I paginated properly, everything changed. I retrieved all 823 people and coverage jumped from 49 companies to 64. If you will trust that first result, around 30 of my others accounts would have looked like they had nobody to contact. The final output is much cleaner. About 300 people kept at 2 per company and persona, everyone with a LinkedIn profile, and sorted by company growth. So now you're prioritizing people based on how fast their company is growing, not just on their title. There are 2 small caveats. The risk and compliance persona is a little noisy. It pulls in a few customer support titles as well, so I would filter that one before outreach. And there are still 15 tier A companies without any contacts. Most of those are tiny AI startups with very small LinkedIn footprints, so in those cases, I would probably reach out directly to the founders. Last stage, which is complete comment, finding work emails. This is the only one that actually starts spending a lot of credit. So before doing anything, it estimates the cost and expected success rate. In my case, I chose the full priority list, 162 people across 59 companies, and it started processing them in batches. Then I deliberately stopped in halfway through because I think that's actually the useful lesson here. After 91 people, we had already found 60 verified work emails. That's about 66 success rate, slightly better than what the skill predicted. It used around 600 credits, and every row was written back with a clear status, found, or not processed yet. So if you stop halfway through, nothing breaks. You just rerun the remaining rows later. The process is independent, and rerunning it won't create duplicates. And honestly, I think that's how most people should use it. Only spend credits on the people you're actually planning to contact. One last thing I noticed, there were 4 companies where no work emails were found, but every one of those companies still had named buyers with LinkedIn profiles. So at that point, I would just switch channels instead of spending more credit trying to guess an email pattern. For me, this run proved 4 things. First, the holdout test worked. The engine rediscovered 93% of the customers it had never seen. Second, funding stage wasn't a useful buying signal here. It would have removed a huge part of the market. Third, adding hiring growth or workforce growth made a massive difference because almost half of the perfect fit companies were actually shrinking. And finally, the interesting strategic insight came from combining the signals, not from any one filter by itself. So end to end, 70 close-won accounts became 10 curated seats. 10 seats became a 3,020 company market. That market got narrowed to right fit companies, then the ones that actually hiring, then to name decision makers and work emails. 8 tables, all populated and linked. The skill is public, the link is in the descriptions, and I would love you to test it on your own close-won accounts. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!